Good afternoon, Kickoff 90. This is our first video analysis that we're going to begin today, discussing a lot of topics. Actually, the world of soccer is vibrant at the moment. We have the World Cup starting on Sunday, first game being Ecuador versus Qatar. That's going to be really interesting to see the World Cup begin, obviously, in a new country that's never hosted a World Cup before. So we're going to get to see some pretty amazing stadiums, as well as kind of follow what's been happening across the world. Lots of talking points, obviously, with this World Cup. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they manage not only the football on the pitch, but also some of these global issues that the world will be watching. So really excited for that. We also had a major interview by Cristiano Ronaldo recently. Even if you're not in the world of soccer, it seems like that is the center of attention at the moment. And what are the implications of that? So we'll certainly discuss that here in this video today. And then we'll pretty much keep this a Ronaldo versus Manchester United video, and then we will also discuss some previews for the World Cup. But there are some topics that I certainly do want to talk about here in the next few videos. The transfer window is going to be coming right around the corner. What are the implications that a World Cup has to a transfer window in January? Will that open up the transfer window to some mega deals? Typically, the January transfer window has been reserved for smaller deals, fringe players, or players that have kind of been ostracized from their teams. But will the likes of a João Felix move in this transfer window? A player, a couple years ago, 100 million plus player. Does a Kylian Mbappe move to now a preferred Real Madrid or maybe somewhere else? So we'll discuss topics like that. We'll discuss questions like, have Manchester United hired the right individual? Are Arsenal prepared to be contenders? Who's going to win La Liga? What does the Ballon d'Or mean to Karim Benzema? So we'll talk about a lot of different things on this channel, and because it is a fan channel created by a fan for the fans, it's really going to be dictated by some of the comments that come through, some of the Facebook posts that I'll be posting on my own personal page, and things of that nature. So I'm really excited to get started through this YouTube journey and see where this takes us. But let's get started on the Ronaldo interview. So really interesting. Depending on your age, Ronaldo has been around the game for such a long time, right? If you have watched football for X amount of years, Ronaldo is not a name that you're not familiar with. He's a global icon, has over 50 million Instagram followers, has won every major award you can think of in the global game of soccer, except for the World Cup, which he will have a chance to do here shortly. But he's also a revolutionary of the game, right? The idea of Ronaldo, especially a few years ago, was that you could achieve anything with tremendous amounts of hard work. That's the beauty for a lot of Ronaldo lovers, is that this is a man that just worked and worked and worked to get to the levels that he's achieved. Everything that he's achieved has been a result of his hard work, determination, and tenacity. And that's really something admirable and pretty remarkable, as the Messi and Ronaldo debate always stems from one seems to generate this natural ability, this flair, versus the other seems to just be a hard work ethic. And that's not to say that Messi doesn't work hard, because he certainly does. But the things Ronaldo does seem to be able to be done by any other player. It's just they haven't been able to put it together consistently. And perform some of the outrageous goal scoring exploits that he has in the past on an every weekend level like he has. It's really been a consistency thing. So hard work and consistency have really been the grandiose of Ronaldo. I certainly grew up idolizing Ronaldo as a young man, thinking the hairstyle and everything, trying to imitate and try to do the step overs and all of that. but he's transformed the game. We're talking about a living legend here. We're also talking on the other side of an institution like Manchester United, which is as strong as any of the large institutions that we can think of, right? I mean, you think of they were one of the biggest proponents, some of the original creators of the Super League, which, if you're not familiar with, the Super League was a creation of a new league intended to generate huge sums of money for these clubs and consolidate some of the better teams into one league, essentially kind of a Champions League format, all under one roof, with all the major teams of the top five leagues, essentially. A big money ploy. I don't necessarily want to get down that road, but if that's something that we want to talk about, certainly will open up that door. But Ronaldo versus Manchester United, and all of that history together is certainly a conversation topic that is worth talking about. As it stands, Ronaldo has delivered an interview with Piers Morgan, highly publicized and highly debated interview across the world at this time. He said some things that, to be fair, probably a lot of fans, football fans, not just Manchester United fans, would agree with. And certainly I've heard some points in there that if you understand the history of Manchester United, you certainly can understand Ronaldo's position, right? This is a young man at the age of 18 who came to one of the largest clubs, most successful clubs in England at the time, and put them made history with this club, right? You cannot think of Manchester United without one of its most legendary players, which is Ronaldo, winning a Ballon d'Or, winning Champions League, winning several Premier Leagues. He was a catalyst for some of the best teams that we've seen at Manchester United. And now he's talking about some of the infrastructure being no longer up to par, some of the ownership standards having dropped tremendously, not having parameters that used to be there that made Manchester United so great back in the early 90s, throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. So very interesting to hear. But also on the flip side, a lot of people have flipped that around and said, the timing of this interview, I think, is the biggest proponent that I've heard. The timing is completely off. Completely off. And I think that's one of those areas where I believe it's really, really hard to argue, whether on whatever side you're on, that the timing is just complete. I mean, this was done purposefully released at this time. So, you're thinking of a player, right, who almost joined Manchester City. That's been public knowledge now for a long time. Emotionally, probably with all that was going on, decided to come back to Manchester United. There's a nostalgia. There's a love, right? Football is really love. It's a passion. It's love. It's memories, right? And comes back to Manchester United to try to bring this club back to its former glory days. Came in first season, was the top scorer. I believe he had 18 or 19 goals in all competitions. Some highlights here and there. And then second season, it's very clear that he's no longer producing up to the standard, according to the coach and according to several of his teammates. And so has a difficult start to the season, probably visibly upset. I mean, a man who is the first one into training, the last one out to training, has outworked all of his competition, including some of his own teammates. That's hard when that has brought you so much success in your life, to then not be able to perform or deliver on the pitch. And at that point, decisions have to be made, right? It's just like us in the corporate world. When we fail to deliver, if you do work in corporate or non-corporate, a lot of times, if you fail to deliver or produce it from a bottom line and add to the revenue, that's when hard decisions are made. So tough decisions were made with Ronaldo, including benching him, including not bringing him on to certain games, including some of the family issues that he's endured, and I want to keep that private, because some of that is I can only imagine how difficult that is to go through as a not only as a professional but as an athlete. So it's certainly been a challenging season for Ronaldo, but the the big event that stirred this the wrong way was walking off the field. And I can understand that frustration. I've certainly been a player in that position where you get to play only a couple minutes in a game, and it's frustrating. It hurts. As competitors, we want to be able to impact the game, and every single high end athlete, and even professional, even in our day to day guys, you want to be able to know. You have to believe in yourself to think that you can make a difference. Um, if if you don't, that's a really hard way. That if you want to be the best at something, if you want to be extremely good at something, you have to have that belief that you can impact. And Ronaldo certainly does. And so for him to just see the score line, see the time, and then get put on, and in one situation, the Man City situation where the team is absolutely getting absolutely obliterated. Um, you you want to come on and get that one goal, right? That those two goals, like Anthony did and whatnot, and you're not even put on the team. You're not even put on the pitch, and then you're winning 3-0 against Tottenham. Sorry, Spurs fans. And you can't even. You get 2 minutes. You want to get 5 minutes. So I understand the frustration there, but you can't leave your team behind, right? You can't leave your coworkers behind if you're on a project. You can't just walk off. You can't. You have to fight until the end. And unfortunately, in this situation in football, the coach has some tough decisions that he or she has to live by. So they do decide what players come on, and if they don't feel that you are going to make a difference, then they don't put you on, but that can come back and bite them. And so from a coaching perspective, I feel like Ten Hag has handled this with a lot of professionalism. We can get into the nitty gritty on the respect factor, but from a professional point of view, he has protected Ronaldo in a lot of public situations. And he's done a good job of mitigating not only what the media is feeding, but also the Ronaldo camp, as well as creating a successful product on the field. Right now, most Manchester United fans would argue that they've been fairly good this season. So time will tell. The beauty is time will tell. Unfortunately, although there's been some mistakes, I think on both sides, it's certainly not beyond to say that Manchester United have not failed their fans and their coaches in the past. We talk about Louis van Gaal and what happened with that debacle, being sacked a few days after winning the FA Cup, and then with Jose, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There's definitely been some issues where the club has lacked backing for. And I'm not talking about transfer backing. I'm talking about infrastructure backing. I'm talking about getting rid of certain players that no longer were being utilized, that are stripping this wage bill tremendously. The infrastructure, apparently the facilities at Old Trafford are very outdated. You had the roof of Old Trafford leaking at one point. So there's lots of things, and we can get into those things. But both sides have clearly damaged this relationship. And in anything in life, I think we now have to come back to a level of respect on both sides. Ronaldo has done his interview, fine. He has that platform. Wrong timing. He's clearly angling for a move. So, as painful as this may be for a lot of Ronaldo fans, and I certainly, there were tons of pictures when I was a very young man of the Ronaldo haircut, the little floof, right? The little tips. I did all his tricks, wanted to be every young man, I think, that grew up during that time wanted to be, not every, but a large portion of us, I certainly remember, we wanted to be Ronaldo. We wanted to be the young guy just on the pitch. It seemed like you couldn't be defeated, and you were scoring goals left and right, and the tricks came with it. It was a good feeling. So I certainly had a lot of love and admiration for Ronaldo. but it's time to respectfully sever the ties between club and player. I would love nothing more but to see Ronaldo do exactly what he is, which is a hard worker, an incredible leader, an incredible charisma. And apparently his fruit of choice is the strawberry, if you've heard the Pierce Morgan interview. I'd love nothing more but for him to go on and have a ton of success at a non-competing club for Manchester United, right? If tomorrow Ronaldo were to sign for Arsenal or Manchester City, that or even Chelsea, that would sting a bit. But clubs that I'm looking at is Inter Miami would be really interesting up in MLS. You're looking at Sporting Lisbon. Apparently he promised his mother that he would go back to Sporting Lisbon. That sounds like a wonderful idea to see Ronaldo back at Sporting, potentially maybe even win the Portuguese league with Sporting. How incredible would that be, right? So it's time to mutually and for United, it's a chance to get back to focusing on fixing this club. And Manchester United absolutely need to fix. They have players that they need to get rid of. They have players that they need to bring in. The coach is still the coaching philosophy is still being built. The standards right now have been raised. That's one of the things Ten Hag has been working on, and he admitted to in public. But now it's about building that style of play, right? Building that team, building that leadership, building that confidence, and working on the training pitch ultimately. And then on the other side is building back the infrastructure, building back confidence with the fan base. The Glazers out movement is not a thing of the past. It is very much still alive. So building back that trust. And so respectfully, that's really, I think, where we are in the Ronaldo situation. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think on the comments or via email or even in response to this video. It probably will be a separation between the two, whether it's a severance of contract or whether it's something else, a trade or a transfer. We'll see. Time will tell. But we've gotten to that point now where it's best for both parties to sever the relationship. And hopefully, this has happened before in United history. Hopefully this is one of those situations where Ronaldo can one day come back at United and be the living legend that he is, because this is a legend walking on the earth. And most of the new soccer fans, if you haven't been watching soccer from the early 90s and even further than that, there was a time period in soccer where we really were blessed. I mean, watching Messi and Ronaldo, watching the Roberto Carloses, the Cafus, the Maldinis, even watching before that the Baggios, the Michel Platinis. I don't know if this new group of players will bring as much satisfaction and talent and joy as some of these, the Maradonas, Raul, as some of these older players that we were able to watch. So there is a new wave coming. Right now, the front runners are probably our friend up in Norway versus the speedy Gonzalez Frenchman, Mbappe versus Holland. But there certainly are some other players that are coming up that are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, what a joy it is to be watching a guy by the name of Kevin De Bruyne play soccer, every Sunday. So I think that concludes the Ronaldo debate, but I do want to hear from you guys. So please comment below or tune in on the channel. We will have guests that come onto the show. I'm really excited and looking forward to having some really good soccer debates with people of various nationalities. Maybe they support various teams or even club supporters. So that'll be really fun. Moving into the World Cup. So we have a very interesting World Cup coming along the way. Starting this Sunday, right at 10 a.m., it'll be Ecuador versus Venezuela. Ecuador versus Venezuela. What am I talking about? It will be Ecuador versus Qatar. Wow. And some interesting two teams that not a lot of people might not know about. I'm a little bit familiar with Ecuador. I do like that striker Plata. Plata is one to watch out for at Valladolid. He just moved there from Sporting Good, highly publicized player from the academy at Sporting Lisbon. Good little player. You've got Estupian as well, a wingback that plays in there for Ecuador. That could cause some problems. Lots of good crosses, and of course, the one that most people will be familiar with is Brighton CDM midfielder Casiedo. Casiedo's a hell of a player. Destroyer, but also good ability on the ball, lots of good distribution. So it'll be interesting to see him. Definitely tuned into that game, and also some really interesting things are going to be kind of launched. These new stadiums are absolutely, if you have not seen some of the renderings and pictures, they're out of this world, and that's something to look into, right? Also begs some global affairs questions as to is this really the right way to approach World Cups, right? Unfortunately, we've known publicly now for some time that we've lost thousands of people in the creation and building of these stadiums, and that's a question that needs to be asked by the public. Is that something that moving forward we should do nations need to have that infrastructure in place, or is another repeat of this situation going to happen? So, yeah, definitely some foreign affairs and ethical questions need to be asked. Absolutely, moving forward for this World Cup. But there's going to be some new changes, also some really positive changes. One, the new system of VAR is supposedly more efficient. So a typical VAR system promises around 45 seconds of making a decision. This will have about a 45 minutes, 45 seconds making a decision making time. The new system will be approximately about 20 seconds. So they have increased that efficiency. They've added an extra referee for this World Cup. It will also be the first time in this World Cup where we have female center referees, which I'm extremely excited about. We've seen some female refs in Liga, and on the lines as side judges, linesmen. So I'm really excited now to see that. It's been a long time coming, and we certainly have waited way too long to bring that into the fray. So that will be a very positive change for this World Cup. And speaking of some of these the competition, this is an extremely competitive World Cup. Speaking of some of these teams, we've got five-time favorites Brazil coming into this tournament with all steam ahead. Really interesting selection for their team. They seem to have a lot of destroyers in the midfield and a very fluid, lots of different components in the attack that they can make. But then in the midfield, pretty much all the same players, right? You look at a Guimarães, you look at a Fred, and you look at a Casemiro. While their styles are slightly different and some of their strengths are slightly different, they really all play the same position, right? They're all three of them are really CDMs at the heart, right? They anchor that midfield at the base. They're able to take the ball from the defense and spread it out. So very interesting. So they should be one of the early favorites. I certainly think Brazil will go a long way. They have the team chemistry. They have a very experienced coach. And I do see that attack being flexible and malleable enough where they can cause a lot of problems. Another team that's really interesting that a lot of people are talking about is Germany, right? Germany's kind of done a revitalization approach to their team, right? The old I remember some of these Philip Lambs, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Michael Ballack. I mean, close. There. Some of these people haven't even played in the last World Cup, but they have gone a little bit of a revitalization, right? Mueller is a bit more on the older side now. Some of these older players, right, Matthew Hummels and whatnot, and they're trying to incorporate a lot of youth, which is really fun to see. A lot of teams, the Italians certainly, who will not be playing at this World Cup, need to probably take that approach. They probably do need to revitalize and kind of go younger and kind of build this team. I actually am probably going to say that the Germans will not be that team that goes all the way. They are young enough where I see this team being an absolute monster in the next Euros and in the next World Cup. You got guys like Musala. Musala is an absolutely phenomenal talent. You've got a ton of youth all over that pitch, right? You've got Serge Gnabry. You've got Mukondo, the new striker at Dortmund, who's leading that line at such a young age. He broke out on the scene when he was 15. Incredible player. Um, young teams struggle in these big tournaments because of high expectations and because of so many things, the pressures of facing a bigger team and whatnot. But the Germans are one to watch out for. They play a very compact style of soccer. They're very direct in their attacks. They do like to overlap. They perform a lot of overlaps. They put balls into the box. So the Germans will be dangerous. We then have kind of the Iberian. If we talk about the Iberian Peninsula, right, we've got the Portuguese national team. Lots of drama coming out of there. Video with Cancelo between Ronaldo. Cancelo visibly upset about something. The Bruno Fernandes handshake between Ronaldo and him. Um, in big tournaments, and I've played in a few during my playing days. And anyone who's gone into a big conference or big distractions are not good. Distractions are unhealthy in business, sport, in love. Distractions are never positive, and so I think those distractions are going to get the best of Portugal. And the question I have for you guys is, if Portugal ends up playing better without Ronaldo, do we not get back into the same situation that is transpiring with him and his club? So that's really interesting. And Spain, I can't put my grasp on Spain. I've been watching a lot of their games, and their fluid 4-3-3 is it's interesting. It's not as dynamic as I've seen in the past. I mean, that great team, Iniesta, Xavi, right? That Piqué. I mean, man, even Puyol, great Spanish teams, right? But the Spanish historically have kind of underperformed at some of these major tournaments, and I'm not sure if they have the firepower that they really want in this tournament. It will be interesting to see because they do have a lot of youth. They have invested in their youth. They brought a lot of Barcelona players on this squad, so the Madrid fans, you guys must be saying something's wrong here. But yeah, the Fatis, the Pedris of the world, the Carlos Solers. It's really interesting. I am excited to watch Spain and see what they can produce on the pitch. The Dutch will be with Louis van Gaal. That will be a very interesting side as well. The Dutch most likely going to play with this three center back approach. I think you're going to see a lot of teams start doing that, right? The Italians have kind of did that. The inventors really of the three-man center back. You're going to see France do that, but the Dutch are really going to take a very interesting approach in terms of their team management. You've got some guys that are going to be standing out on the Dutch side. You definitely Memphis Depay is going to be looking at creating an impact there. You've got an incredible defender in Virgil van Dijk, who has not had a very good season so far with Liverpool. Is he going to come in on the Dutch team? You've got guys like Dumfries, Malacia on the wings. Yeah, very interesting. Frankie De Jong. The Dutch could be a really surprise team. They're technically very gifted. They have players in every position that can put the ball in the back of the net, that can compose the game, slow the game down, that can defend. It'll be interesting if they can all put it together. So the Dutch are certainly one to look out for. You've got Argentina. Argentina led by Lionel Messi. Very strong team. Some of the early favorites, too. A lot of the favorites have put Argentina and Brazil, two South American teams at the World Cup final. Would be incredible. What an incredible matchup that would be. That will be an interesting team. Argentina as well, I find the identity there is struggling a bit. You've got, of course, amazing players, right? The Di Marias of the world. You've got Martinez at the center back position. Otamendi is in that squad. You've got really strong players. A mixture between experience and skill level. DePaul from Atletico, really some strong players all over the field from attack to defense. but I don't know if they've truly narrowed their identity. So that would be one. Again, like Spain, I'm not sure if they can go all the way. Um, and we'll see. I mean, with a player like Messi, with some of the incredible players that they have, you never know, and great coach as well. So we shall see. Other favorites too include probably France. France is a very interesting one. They will be going three center backs as well. You do have quite a few injuries. The double pivot that they used to run between Pogba and Conte will not be at the World Cup. Most experts predict that the Chouameni Camavinga double pivot will be utilized, but it'll be very interesting. Again, a lot of that midfield, the strongest part of that French midfield is probably its defensive strength and not necessarily its creativity. Will that hinder the likes of Griezmann, Giroud, Benzema, and Mbappe up front? So I do anticipate France having some issues as well, and they're one of the favorites to go really far. So those are some of the top teams. I'd love to know your analysis. Who's going to go the furthest? We are missing a ton of phenomenal players, as we know. Mohamed Salah not at the World Cup, right? A ton of injuries between Sadio Mane, right? You're talking about the goal scorer of 2022, Erling Haaland not being at the World Cup. There's going to be a lot of people missing, so that'll be an unfortunate thing to not see, but. What are your takes on the World Cup? Who's gonna be a dominant? And there's other teams that we haven't even talked about, right? The English national team, the Americans, right? How far will the Americans go? Do the last couple of ties and losses that we've incurred is that still in our brains, right? So and you have a ton of other teams, right? We haven't even talked about Croatia. Croatia's a phenomenal team. Luka Modric is still able to dominate a game, and you got Brazovic, and you have a ton. There's a new kid, Maier, who plays in the French league, who is an absolute just gem to watch. You've got a lot of great talents. Belgium, Will Lukaku, Carrasco, Frankie, Kevin, not Frankie, Kevin De Bruyne, Courtois. Will they all figure it out? Will the golden generation get far? And don't sleep on some of these other teams as well. We don't want to sleep on Cameroon. We don't want to sleep on a lot of different teams that can really put up a fight. So it's going to be exciting to watch. I can't wait to see it. Please comment, subscribe to the video. I'd love to start this journey with you all. I can't wait to start putting out more and more soccer content. And of course, this is Kevin Matisse clocking out. I look forward to talking to you guys, and let's see what the game brings on Sunday. I'll talk to you guys next week.